Welcome back to Playing the Game. Today, I sit down with Chris Payten from Infinity Training and Coaching, where they do breathwork facilitation and help people become accredited in breathwork and also business coaching. I met Chris at a seminar a few months ago, a year ago nearly now, and I already actually followed him on Instagram, and then he rocked up, and I remember seeing him there, and I'm like, you're the type of guy that I would like to learn from and to get to know. So super fortunate to have him on my show. I learned so much about how to breathe, and probably I'm breathing wrong. So I'm sure you're going to get something very useful out of this. Remember, if you learn one thing, you have to share it with one person. If you learn two things, you have to share it with two people. But apart from that, let's get into the show. I know you're going to love it. Let's go. If you could be any animal, what would you be?
I love this question. I've been asked it before. I'd be a lion.
A lion.
I love lions. I think that they're just powerful and they're stoic and they're strong. And yeah, I don't know. I've always been like obsessed with like tigers and lions.
Yeah.
I don't really like domestic house cats, but I like the big ones.
For sure.
But yeah, I just think they're like a real symbol of strength. So yeah,
Like that.
I'd be a lion.
I like it.
Yeah.
So we met at Morgan Nelson's sort of event, and through those events we learned about business. And you started your career in PT. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Was that sort of your first business venture, or did you have any business ventures before that?
Nah, I've actually never really had a job.
Okay.
I had one job, and that was when I was about 15, 16 at Rugs a Million. Yeah, that
I haven't heard
place.
that name in a while.
They're always closing down that place.
Yeah.
Closing down sale. And yeah, I was in like year 9 or 10, and we were just trying to make a bit of pocket money on the side. And I think I lasted about 2 weeks there, hanging rugs, bringing down rugs, and it just wasn't me. I think I knew pretty early on that I didn't want to work for anyone. So I was always like really athletic, sporty, into sport. And in year 11 and 12, they offered a Cert 3 and Cert 4 in fitness as subjects. So I came out of year 12 qualified to be a PT. And so that's what I did. Like I went straight into a big box gym at Good Life. And that was my first business. Like I've had 3 now. My first one was that. And I was definitely kind of sold the dream at the time of like, before you know it, you'll be on 40 sessions and, you know, at $50 a week, that's great money for an 18-year-old. And it's safe to say that the first like 3 years of that was fucking hard, really hard. But yeah, I was in that for over a decade in the end, and slowly layered in things like sports nutrition and just, you know, became a more valuable PT. But yeah, that was the journey into being a business owner, entrepreneur. Yeah.
So it was very hard for those first 3 years.
Super hard.
The good thing about hard things, they teach you skills and teach you mindset. What were some of the key things you learned from those early years?
I learned to think outside the box because, you know, there was like 18 trainers in there, right? And, you know, you come in 17 years old, no experience, barely had any fucking hair on my face, nothing. And you've got people that are coming in looking to invest into a trainer or a coach. And, you know, ultimately they want to spend their hard-earned money on people who have been in the game a longer time and they have more skills and they have more experience. So initially it was hard because I got overlooked. And so I thought, like, how am I going to get some business here? How am I going to stand out? And, you know, I had to go a little bit unconventional. I think that's where I learned that I started thinking outside the box. I won't name names, but I spoke to a few of the, what were they called at the time? Like sales reps or the membership consultants. And I actually worked with them and paid a couple of them commission for anyone that they sort of pointed my way.
Yeah, nice.
And, you know, like that would have been against the rules at the time, but I quickly learned that if I just followed the set structure, it was going to take me a long time. And around that time, that's when I was having my first child too. So I was like, I got to pull my finger out of my ass and make some money. And so I started thinking out the box and found lots of little ways to bring in business and, you know, work with people, make things like a win-win situation. And yeah, from there it sort of just built and built and built. And, you know, I had the passion and the skill set. So I think once people caught on to that and I looked busier and my clients were getting results, then it kind of just snowballed from there. Yeah.
You talked about nutrition as well.
Yep.
When did you sort of start to learn that you had to upskill yourself? Was that sort of what you learned straight away? Or was it as you went along, like, I'm a PT, but what if I can add nutrition on? Like, how did you start upskilling yourself?
Well, it was that same thing. I was like, I've got to think outside the box here, you know, like if there's 18 trainers on the wall that the membership consultants take them past and go, this person does this person does this. But as a PT, you're not insured nor accredited to give nutritional advice. Like that's a big no-no beyond very, very basic stuff. So I went, well, I never wanted to go to university. That wasn't a desire for me. I didn't want to go to a nutrition degree. So I looked at ways that I could get some baseline, I guess, knowledge and skill set, and just the ability to be able to provide some macros or a payment, not a payment plan, a food plan. And so I thought, well, if I'm the only one on that board in this place who is like a one-stop shop for both the training and the food, then that's already going to differentiate me. It's already going to help me stand out. And it did. I was the first person in that gym to actually become a sports nutritionist in amongst the PTs. And that was a massive selling point for people. I had a program where I can be like, hey, I'll handle your food as well. Which meant ultimately I could charge more for my time and I could work with less people, because at one point I think I was doing like 70 or 80 sessions a week, getting there at 4 a.m, leaving at like 7 p.m. again, a couple of hours in the middle of the day off. And I loved what I did, but I hated the times that I had to work. I hated that. So yeah, I think in the end, that's the thing that drove me out of PT.
I think that's such a valuable lesson. You have this idea in your head, you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to have all these clients. And then you have all the clients and you realize I have no time.
Yeah.
And the whole point I started this journey was probably you didn't want to work for anyone. So you're like, well, I want more time to myself.
100%.
So you're going through that. And so many people do it. And even like in an office role, for example, you do the same process. You're like, oh, if I keep working harder, I'm going to get that promotion, but not knowing that promotion leads to more time. How did you end up, Lee, you said you left that. What was the next sort of venture?
Yeah, so started another business actually with a client of mine. She came into one of the challenges that we were running at the gym there. And initially, she had businesses in daycare, and she obviously wanted to diversify her business portfolio and do something different. So she started working with me, realized that I had, obviously some knowledge around fitness and health. And then we spoke about potentially opening a gym together, a franchise, and then quickly realized that wasn't really what we wanted to do. I've always wanted to help people in all sorts of ways, but the thing that really stood out for me was how can I help them as holistically as possible? How can I encompass the whole human, not just the physical part? And that's kind of what I felt like it was like in the end with PT. You would have clients that would open up to you and you develop close relationships with, and you're almost like a therapist sometimes, but it was still very much focused on the physical outcome. So I wanted to go deeper than that. And it's just funny how things worked at that time. I was going through probably the hardest part of my life at that point, going through a separation, went into a big depression, mental breakdown. That's when I actually found breath work, which is what we do now. And, as I started diving into this more, it made sense to then go into a business that was more around life transformation and creating this holistic sort of, approach. And so we created a business that was really focused around like life coaching and, wellness coaching and everything in between. We ran a lot of breathwork events. We ran a lot of sort of men's and women's retreats, just general personal development stuff that most people have been into. And yeah, that went for about 3 years. And then I met my partner, Shani, in October of 2023. And, we quickly realized that she was a breathwork facilitator too.
Yeah.
And we quickly realized that, we wanted to do something together. And, if I'm being really honest, that created friction in the other business. And we had different values and different ideas of where we wanted to steer each other's businesses. And so we chose to separate. And that just catapulted me into what I do now, which is my third business. And, what we do now is we certify people in breathwork. Breathwork is something that, I've carried through without knowing it, like through my PT and performance days, breathing, respiration, performance. But now the other side of it too, where, we can help people with mental health issues. We can help people that are dealing with trauma. And so breathwork kind of was the place where I was like, I can put it all together here. Like this is the thing that actually allows me to encompass the thing as a whole. And, when we were sitting wondering about, what we wanted to do as a business, I really had to tap back into like, well, what do I feel like I'm here to do? And my greatest joy and genius is teaching and educating. I love to teach. I love to educate. So we had a big goal of also being able to have people access breathwork on a larger scale. So like, how can we reach millions of lives with this thing? Because, it does change lives, but we're only 2 people. And I heard once, I forget where it was, but someone said that one person roughly impacts about 5,000 people in their lifetime. So we're like, okay, we want to impact 1 million lives with breathwork. How do we do that? Okay, well, if we certify people, like if I step into my genius and teach and educate and certify, if we certify them, then they can go on and help people. Then 200 trained facilitators is 1 million lives changed or impacted. And so at the time that goal felt big, but now it doesn't. It feels small, and we'll go well beyond that in the coming years. But yeah, that's what we're geeking out over now. It's not just certifying in breathwork. It's not just teaching people it. We have this arm of our business that is different to other certification models where we do business coaching as well. What lights me up more than anything is seeing people make money and get free from occupations, lifestyles, and shit that they don't want to do anymore. And ultimately to get up every day and just love what they do. To look at their calendar and go like, fuck yeah, like I'm going to work with all these amazing people today. I'm going to change lives today. I'm going to help change lives today. Or maybe their calendar's empty and they don't have to do shit if they don't want to. And so, freedom is a high value of mine. And now what we want to do is help coaches, not just specifically breathwork coaches. Breathwork is a tool to bring into their business. And most of the people that come through our training are certified in other modalities, which is important. But now it's giving them the blueprint or the fundamentals to at least go out there and get clients. Because there's so many people that go through certifications charged up, ready to go. They come out the other side and they're like, what the fuck do I do now? How do I get clients? How do I market myself? What's a reel? How do I post on social media? The amount of people who don't know that. And unfortunately, what I've seen is so many people just get disheartened and a bit overwhelmed and like, where do I go next? So we're attempting to bridge that gap, and so far so good, having some great results.
What are some of the things you talk about? The breathwork coaching is one part of it, but then the business coaching. I'm someone who's, classifying myself, get into that coaching space. I was so reluctant for so long. So I'm like, who am I to coach people?
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you would teach in the business side of things?
Yep. So it's there's a few different stages. So with our level 1 training, the way it works is that there's 3 steps. So you do your pre-learning, you come along, you do your 3-day breathwork training practical, you get certified, and then we run a 4-week online program after. So it's all included in the package, whether you show up or not, whether you need it or not, it's there. And across those 4 weeks, we do a call each week for 90 minutes on Zoom. We cover marketing and messaging, we cover social media, we cover sales, and we cover some mindset shifts that you have to go through because, being an entrepreneur, like strategy is important. Yeah. Knowing how to market yourself. Yeah. But if you're not right here, if the self-doubt's there, if the limiting beliefs are there, if the imposter syndrome's there and you let it get too loud, doesn't matter what your fucking strategy is, you're not going to scale because you're the problem, right? Your mindset is the problem. So we do incorporate some mindset stuff in there too, just, what to expect being a business owner. And so we cover some basics and, to be honest, I was running it at the start just based on like what I know. And as things have evolved, I've really taken on a model in my business of who, not how. And I've stopped asking myself how to do things that I'm not good at, and I put people in place that are better than me, and they're my who's. So the last training that we did, I didn't run any of the calls. I put our marketing manager in, she taught marketing. I put our sales guy in, he taught sales. I put our one of our friends in for the mindset call, she did that. Put another one of my friends in who's a gun at social media, he did that. And not only did that allow me to sit back, it also added more value to the program. You're now learning from 4 different people other than me. They're probably sick of my fucking voice after that amount of time anyway, So, they got value from experts in their own fields who could probably teach these things way better than I could ever teach them. And in the same respect, I'm sitting back and I'm learning and I'm absorbing. And one of the things that I guess I'm realizing about myself is, I'm kind of good at lots of little things, like a master of all trades or something, like jack of all trades, master of none. Yeah. And that's what I'm aiming to do. As I'm learning and evolving and putting people in the right place, like I want to take a little bit from each and develop myself as a person. But I also need to be aware of like when I might be the bottleneck in the thing. And most time as a business owner, like you're the bottleneck. And if you get out of the way and put the right person in place, things just get so much smoother and easier. So we do have plans as things go on. Like we have our level 2 training, and then beyond that, we're in the process now of sort of building out what like our own mastermind looks like. where, you know, we'll work with lots of different coaches. You know, I've been in the space of personal training, NLP, breathwork, all these things. So, you know, I want that to be a place where whether they come through the breathwork side of things or whether they just, you know, want to come in and get some coaching on their business, it's an arm where we can serve more people in that aspect. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Had a lot of knowledge because you said you did NLP, personal training, all that sort of thing. And then you've also worked with, as you said there, your sales manager, your marketing manager, social media. Is there anyone that sticks out or any lessons you've learned from experts that you've had time to absorb that you think are just critical for growth or for anyone listening?
Yeah. I think the thing that stands out the most if you're going to run a business is your message. One thing that I've really learned from our marketing team is you've got to get so clear on your message. And I think the larger portion of who we work with are coaches, practitioners. Like we have a lot of nurses, physios, psychologists, counselors, which is really cool to see that side of the, I guess, the line coming in. It's not just coaches. But we also, you know, work with a lot of aspiring coaches too. People who may be in the job that they don't like and they're looking for a vehicle to make some money and help people at the same time. So with that, no matter where you are, you've got to know who you're talking to. You know, my marketing team said to me once, like, Chris, when you talk to everyone, you talk to absolutely no one. And that was really scary initially to niche down and say, hey, we work with aspiring coaches and health professionals. Because I'm like, fuck, we're cutting off 80% of the world. But the problem was with that is we would run events, pack a room, like 80 people, but then only a few would convert into our trainings. I'm like, well, why is that? Because they weren't the right people in the room. They're coming along for a breathe. They're coming along for an experience. And a lot of the people that we're pulling in are yet not aware they have a problem or they're not even aware that's where they want to go. And so we could go the hard way and go, well, yeah, cool. We could use this model, bring them in, educate them, warm them up over time, and then slowly move them towards becoming a facilitator. Or we could just call the person out directly that wants to be a facilitator. So that was a massive edge, and shifting my content to like talking to coaches, talking about building a profitable business. Like it was so edgy because it's a niche, right? But if you think about how many people are becoming coaches these days, right? How many people are NLP certified, breathwork certified, all the things. You know, I say to my students, when you come out the other side, every single one of you have the same certification, you have the same knowledge, you theoretically have the same thing, but you can all be successful in your own right because you are you and you are not them. And that's where your niche comes in, your message comes in, your past, your pains, everything that you have gone through. And these are just, you know, your unique way of helping people through it. So you've got to be clear on who you are, who you're not, who you're talking to, and then speak directly to those people. Otherwise, you know, it's really hard to find your ideal clients, and you'll feel like, you know, leads are hard to come by. When the clearer you are, the easier it gets. So that's probably been the biggest lesson for right now. And also too, you know, as I said before, it's as a whole, it's really just asking myself like, who, not how. How can I step out of this part? How can I step out of this part? Who can I hire? I think for a long time I got caught in the, well, like maybe the business isn't at a point where I can pay someone a full-time salary. That doesn't have to be like that. You can put people in as freelancers and things like that. There's people on Upwork and Fiverr and things like this that would speed things up and do a way better job. So I guess from an operations standpoint, free yourself up of the 80% of shit that you don't want to do. That's costing you time. And from a messaging standpoint, you need to get really clear on who you're serving, and that's going to help.
What's your message now? Do you have like the tagline where you help X do X? What's your...
Yeah. I don't know where my bio is. My marketing team and my partner would probably piss themselves laughing when I say this, but I change my bio often. I reckon my bio has been the same for the longest amount of time since I've had Instagram, because we're always changing, right? Like finding your message is constant iteration. You know, it's like, oh, we're going to fine tune this, how does that speak to people? So at the moment, I believe my message is I help coaches master breathwork and get certified so they can build profitable, purpose-driven businesses, or with proven strategies to scale, something like that. It's in my bio.
Yeah. I'm so thankful you just said that your bio is changing all the time. I always do it. The same thing. I'm like, what's my message? What am I trying to...
Yeah.
And the thing I've found lately with what I want to do and my purpose, and I keep learning new things. And the more I learn, the more I am aware of what I want to do, what my limiting beliefs are, what my past is, and then it changes like what I want to do and what I want to help. So I find that really helps. I'm a bit of a business junkie. I've always had like little businesses and just little spot fires, and I'll start them, and then I'll just won't worry about them.
Yeah.
So it's probably I'm similar. I'm the longest I've probably kept going in a business for a while now, and I think it's because I've actually found something I enjoy doing. I spoke the other day where I wanted to do like life coaching, and I had like a year off teaching the other year, but I was just so worried about other people would think. I'm like, oh, who am I to be a life coach? Like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
And then even just like through Morgan's events and just through like a lot of reflection, like now I'm so okay with it because it doesn't really matter what other people think and what they want to do. It's like, well, I want to help make a difference. I want to help make purpose. So that's what's important. So then from there, it leads to so many different ideas. But
that feeling never goes away. It's always there. Like there's always that sneaky, it's the imposter syndrome. You know, it's the, what do you know? Or you don't have enough this yet. And I actually posted on my stories the other night about this. Like, have you ever fallen into the trap of feeling like you're not ready to help people yet? Maybe you don't feel like you're healed enough. Maybe you don't feel like you have enough experience. This, that. The mind loves to tell you lots of stories to keep you safe. I was the same with stepping into business. It's like, fuck, you know, who are you to talk business? But then I'm like, hold up a second. Like, I've been in business my whole life. You know, like I've been in business my whole life. And, you know, fortunately, I've had a couple of things that I've tried to do endeavors where they just like, but they were small things. But out of the 3 things that I really put my heart and soul into, they were all profitable and they were all successful. So, you know, that voice is always going to be there. This is one of the things that we say to our students, especially when they're starting, like, you know, you have to get this right. If you're buying into the bullshit stories that your mind tells you, like, you're just going to paralyze yourself and you're going to stay stuck. All you have to realistically do is help someone who's on the step below you, you know, and all that is just a past version of you. Coming back to the message, like, if you want to know who your ideal client is, what was the worst day of your life? Like, what are the biggest pains you've ever been through, and how did you get through them? And where are you now? And how do you help people do that? You know, it gets to be simple, but we overcomplicate it. Yeah.
I like that. Dan, who works here, the founder, he taught me something similar. It was everyone's so caught up because you see people who are like level 10s, for example, and they just know everything. Like, you know, Yomozi, for example. Yeah. And then you think, oh, well, who can I teach if they're level 10 and I'm level 3? But it's like, if you're level 3, you can help level 1s and 2s.
100%.
Like, as you sort of said, you just got to help that past version of yourself to get to where you are.
Yeah. We're not sitting here going like, join our program. We're going to help you scale your business to $100 million. No, no. We're working with people who want to go 0 to 10K, 10 to 20K, 20 to 30K, places like that. So as long as you're staying congruent and you're not talking out of your ass and, you know, essentially living a lie, then you can definitely help people.
I think it was at Mind and Money, Lloyd Ross said something that sort of sparked me. It was like, as long as you're trying and you have your best interest at heart to help someone, because it's talk about selling and not having the confidence to like do, as we're sort of talking that imposter syndrome. It's like, but if you genuinely are trying to help them live a better quality life and what you're saying you believe in, then like you just have to believe that because you're trying to help them. If it fails, then hey, it fails, but you tried and you can honestly say that you're trying your hardest.
Yeah, 100%.
Let's flip it into the science of the breath work. Obviously that's your niche. Let's just start with, I guess, what is breath work?
Yeah. Breath work, like if I'm going to explain it simply, it's just a spectrum of ways to use your breathing and your breath. You can breathe slow, you can breathe fast, you can hold your breath. You know, you can do lots of different things with your breath. And breathing's the only system in your body that you can let it go. Happens by itself, thank God. You know, you take over 20,000 breaths a day. If you had to consciously think about each one of those, it would take up a lot of mental space. So fortunately, we have part of our nervous system that just handles that by itself. But the cool part is that we can actually take control of it. And there's no other system in the body that you can really do other than thoughts and breathing. And that says a lot to me. I'm like, if we have somewhat control over these 2 things, then, you know, we can use them to our advantage. There's definitely something in this. So breath work is just a spectrum of ways to breathe. And, you know, a lot of people come into breath work and they're quite siloed into what they think it is. It's either these big cathartic moments that they see on Instagram or the internet where people are having almost like an exorcism looking thing. and they're either like, I want to try that, or fuck that, I don't want to go near that. Or there's the other side of it too, where, you know, all they've ever known is, you know, maybe breathing for performance, or, you know, how to breathe during exercise or something like that. And the truth is that there's so much in between that. And, you know, what we really aim to do is bridge the gap between both of those worlds, from the everyday functional breathing for health, performance, or just living a great balanced life, all the way up to, you know, these powerful transformational sessions that do exist. And, you know, the problem that we have around not more people being exposed to it is that it has sort of taken on this almost like this stereotype. And for whatever reason, you know, a lot of that space involves more esoteric stuff, right? Like, we're walking in, we're getting saged, we're holding crystals, we're laying down, there's different types of instruments being played, and we're drinking cacao, and like all of that is really great, right? But for a lot of people, it's too much. It's too much. Like, when we talk about the everyday person, it'll either intimidate them or it'll just flat out make them feel like it's not for them. And the sad part about that is, you know, that there's so many people out there that could be getting access to different breathing exercises that would help their health tremendously, but they're steering away from it because of some sort of stigma or stereotype. So what we do is, you know, and for all those spiritual people listening, if you're out there, I love you. Like, I have that part of me too, but we kind of polarize against it, and we have a laugh against it, like a lighthearted laugh, because what we want to do is we just want to be a middle ground. Like, if you're super woo-woo, we love you, come in. But if you're so grounded in science and evidence, then, you know, this is also the place for you. And what also happens by doing that is we get this community of different people that end up rubbing up against each other and growing as individuals, because where one person might swing this way and the other swings this way, they can bring each other back to this middle ground. And there's this beautiful synergy between what is, you know, maybe spiritual, mystical, unexplainable, and science. And, you know, there's so much evidence and science now backing up even that, you know, transformational styles of breathwork. We know what's happening in the brain. We know what's happening in the nervous system. We know how these sessions are so potent for helping people, you know, free themselves of trauma and stress and tension. And so, you know, as a company, and our mission is to just make it more mainstream, bring breathing awareness into the everyday public and go, hey, like, you have a tool here that you don't even realize exists. And, you know, there's a million slow breathing techniques and there's a million fast breathing techniques, but I tell our students, like, that the thing that really matters is what breathing does to your nervous system. When you breathe slow and extend the exhale, you typically down-regulate your nervous system. When you breathe fast, you up-regulate your nervous system. So at any given time, it actually becomes more about gaining self-awareness over yourself, what state you're in at the time, and then using breath as a tool to shift state into a more functional, productive, helpful zone. Because, you know, everyone's experiencing a lot of stress in the world, different types of stress, okay? And so that ultimately influences our nervous system and shifts us out of our grounded state that we should be living in most of the time. And so if we're aware that we're hyper aroused, like we're anxious, angry, overwhelmed, stressed, then we have a tool to come down. Or if we're feeling like we've had so much stress that we're down here and we're dissociated, we're flat, we're numb, we're lazy, we're experiencing all these shitty limiting beliefs in our head, we can use upregulating breath techniques to move back into a green zone where we're more functional. And so, you know, I'm also really passionate about, in the world of everyone talking about self-limiting beliefs and, like, you know, work on your self-limiting beliefs, like work on your mindset. I'm like, your mindset work's not going to do shit if you don't work on your nervous system, because your nervous system is feeding your mind. Your state of your nervous system determines your reality. You know, you don't feel shit all the time. You don't feel anxious all the time. You don't feel down all the time. We move through these different states. And so it makes sense to me to go, well, when do I experience these things? Like, when do I experience self-limiting beliefs? Okay, well, I experience them when I'm low. I don't have the time to experience them when I'm anxious because my mind's full of fear and I'm just racing around. I experience them when I'm low. Okay, cool. So I now know that this voice gets louder when I'm in this state. Cool. So if I just shift my state, then that voice goes away. The voice is different. It's calm, it's more open, it's relaxed. Cool. Okay. So how much time are we spending stuck in a certain state of our nervous system trying to work here, when really what we need to do is work here first and then here? So all my coaching before I stepped into the certification space was I always worked with nervous system first and then mind, because otherwise you're just pushing shit up a hill. You know, and it's why a lot of people are going to modern day talk therapy and stuff like that, and they're not getting much relief, because there's so much stress being stored here that's not being completed, and the nervous system's holding it, and it's sending signals to the brain that there's a problem, breathing too fast. And, you know, it's just like this hamster wheel, and the mindset stuff just makes them overanalyze stuff more, and they think more. And that's half the problem. We need to get people thinking a bit less and getting back into their felt sense in their body. So, you know, in a long-winded way, like this is the tool for us to just get out of our heads, shift our state, get back into our body, and to be able to actually think clearly and make proper decisions and feel open to life and other people. Yeah.
Do you have any specific examples that the everyday person could do? One for upregulate and one for downregulate?
Yeah. So if you're down and you need to upregulate, there's a breath technique called the breath of fire. And it's simple. You just quite literally just exhale as fast as you can through your nose. And the inhale happens by itself. So all you're focusing on doing is just pushing the air out. And you'd only want to do that for about 30 to 60 seconds max, because it can make you feel a little bit lightheaded. But what starts to happen there is, as you start to breathe fast, your nervous system goes into a sympathetic state, right? So you actually quite literally put yourself into a fight or flight state, but it's conscious and it's controlled. It's not like something's happening to you and you're scared or you're anxious. You're using your nervous system, because, you know, there's actually not a problem being in that part of your nervous system. It's a problem if we stay there too long. When you jump in the car and you drive on the highway somewhere for an hour that you've never been before, you're more sympathetic than you are parasympathetic, because you have to focus. When you're studying a really intense subject, like, you're more sympathetic than you are parasympathetic, because you need to focus. So when you start to breathe like this, you get a quick shot of adrenaline, which obviously puts you up, right? And then it'll move you back into a more functional state, which you can then capitalize on that state and keep going. It's important that you capitalize on it. Don't just do it and then stop. Do it to get the boost you need, and then engage in the activity that you need to do or that you're putting off. And then from there, dopamine will flow. Conversely, if you're really heightened, then really all you need to do is we need to slow our breathing, and not just slow our breathing, but soften our breathing and lighten our breathing as well. We've been sold a lie in the way to breathe throughout school and sport and everything. It's like, take big breaths, but that's kind of counterintuitive. If you want to truly oxygenate your body and downregulate your nervous system, you need to actually breathe less. And it's not so much in the oxygen that you're breathing in, it's how much CO2 you can tolerate in your body, which is going to determine, you know, how regulated you are and how much oxygen gets delivered to your cells and your brain. So, you know, when people are really stressed and anxious, what I'll often say to them is, hold your breath. Like, hold your breath. One, stops over breathing in its tracks. Because when you get stressed, your breathing picks up faster. The faster you breathe, the more the stress response kicks in. Think about someone having a panic attack, feeding it. So if we hold our breath, bang, we can't overbreathe. Two, one of the biggest human fears is suffocation. So the minute you hold your breath, your mind cannot be anywhere else on the fact that you are not breathing in air. It just goes, fuck, he's not breathing, right? It's like putting your face in freezing cold water. It'll snap you out of it straight away, bang, which is called the mammalian dive reflex. So hold your breath, and I'll typically get them to do short breath holds. So I might say, like, just breathe through your nose, hold your breath for 10 seconds on the exhale, breathe out, hold. Resume breathing, 30 seconds nasal breathing, breathe out, hold your breath. And as you're doing that, you're slowing down the breath, you're bringing CO2 levels back up, and you're stabilizing the nervous system. And it works for panic, it works for anxiety, it even works for people having asthma attacks. We work with a lot of people with asthma as well. Yeah.
You spoke a little about breathing in sport and performance. I'm doing it wrong. I work at a sports school, so have a lot around that. Is there anything that I could teach them or try to implement to help, like, with performance?
Yeah. First thing is, as much as you can, breathe in and out of the nose, in and out. There's so many benefits to nasal breathing and so many functions to the nose that you don't get through breathing through your mouth. Breathing through your mouth serves a purpose at maximal intensity exercise for very short periods of time. But there are so many things that you get through breathing through your nose that you don't get through your mouth. And mouth breathing is very, very bad for your health. You know, I remember doing a workshop at the Brisbane Broncos. I went in and did like a performance style of workshop with some of their strength and conditioning coaches and stuff. And I remember making a statement, and then I'm like, mouth breathing is the worst thing you could have done you can do for your health. And he goes, one of them's like, that's a bit exaggerated, mate. There's plenty of worse things, like brought up drugs and stuff. I'm like, yeah, cool. Like I get your point, but mouth breathing is fucking terrible for your health. Like it's bad. And so breathing through your nose in and out of exercise, because what we're going to do by breathing through our nose is we're going to make our breathing mechanics more efficient. So we're going to breathe lower. Okay, and we're going to fill the lower portion of our lungs. When we breathe through our mouth, we typically breathe higher. And when we think about where oxygen gets absorbed into the body, it's in the alveoli, which is the bottom part of the lungs. The bottom third of the lungs is where most of your alveoli sit. So we need to get the air down. So when you breathe through your nose, inherently you breathe deeper and lower, getting the air where it needs to go. Secondly, the holes of your nose are far smaller than your throat and your mouth. So just by breathing through your nose is a form of breathing retraining, because you're restricting airflow up to 16 times more than the mouth. As a result, what then happens is CO2 levels go up. You've got more CO2 in the blood because you're not pushing it out, pushing it out. And one of the things that many people don't know about carbon dioxide, it's not just a gas that you breathe out. It's essential for the air that you breathe in to make it from your red blood cells into your cells to recreate energy. If not, it just binds closer to your red blood cells. It doesn't release, and it keeps traveling around your blood. And as a result, you don't have as much energy being created in the cells, in your brain, all the things included. So it's about raising our CO2 tolerance. And in turn, by learning to breathe less, we actually get more out of our performance. It's a bit of a hard concept to sort of explain simply in 2 minutes, but if I was to put it into like a bow, just imagine that you were like an oxygen molecule, and I took a breath in, and you went into my nose, and you went down my windpipe, and then you split into the 2 branches of my lungs, and you went all the way down to those little air sacs that I was just telling you about. And essentially then what happens is oxygen moves in to the red blood cells and jumps onto a protein called hemoglobin. So most people would have heard that. And that is essentially the ferry. So you just imagine these jumping on the ferry, and then it takes you round the body, and there's all these cells going, hey, I need you for energy. Hey, I need you to help me recreate energy. Hey. But the thing is, if you've been over breathing, right, and you've been breathing too much and pushing too much CO2 out, it doesn't jump off the ferry. It just keeps going around. However, if there is enough CO2 present, jumps off, in, does its thing, recreates energy. So, over breathing is probably the worst thing you could do for performance, and learning to breathe less is one of the best things you can do.
So if they get to a situation, I was looking the other day of like practicing that breathing, like you have a bit of a break. It's like there's deep breaths, there's deep, slow breaths. So you try to get those through the nose, the deep, slow breaths.
100%.
Would you try talk about holding your breath for calming? Would you do that in a game scenario?
Yeah, you could definitely do that. Like if you've had periods where you're, doing really intense, strenuous bursts of exercise, it is about trying to slow the breathing down as much as you can, and putting in maybe some little breath holds. It's going to be pretty hard when you're tanked. So they might be as little as like 5 seconds at a time. But just that 5 seconds at a time is going to stop over breathing in its tracks. It's going to help CO2 come back up. That means that the oxygen is going to move into your cells, and that urge to take another breath is going to go away. That feeling of breathlessness is because you're not getting enough oxygen into the cells. It's not getting in there. And the fascinating thing about human beings is if you put a pulse oximeter on you, you're 95 to 99% saturated with oxygen at any given moment. So the argument is not that you need more oxygen. It's the fact that you need higher CO2 to use the oxygen to get it to where it needs to go. So by just doing those little breath holds, it'll decrease that feeling of breathlessness. And this is what we see with asthmatics and stuff too. We teach them to hold their breath, and we work on their breath holding. And even in an asthma attack, they do breath holding exercises because, what carbon dioxide also does is it opens everything up. It's a vasodilator. It opens the airways. So if someone's having an asthma attack and they're breathing fast, then the airways start to actually tighten, and it makes it worse, and it makes it worse, and it makes it worse. Then they panic, they breathe faster and faster, and it just keeps going and it keeps going. Whereas if they can just stop it in the moment, quick breath hold, nasal breathing, quick breath hold, the symptoms will just fade away. So yes, in a nutshell, during training too, like where can you incorporate little breath holds? I do them before I'm warming up to go for a run. I'll do 5 strong breath holds before I actually start my run, building CO2 up. Then there's a quick release of oxygen into the cells. And I'm also warming up my diaphragm and my respiratory muscles too. So that when I start the actual training, I have better recruitment of my breathing muscles and I don't feel as breathless, and generally I can go for longer and have better performance.
On your page, I did a bit of research, and you talk about the constant over breathing, and we sort of touched on a little bit there in the mouth breathing. But is there any way we can sort of, because you mentioned before, we consciously breathe, like it's not something we focus on. So how can we sort of go around what is over breathing, I guess, and then how can we sort of counteract that?
Yeah, it's it depends who you're asking, but typically, from what I've learnt, over 12 times in a minute at rest, so breath cycles. If you breathe,
what's normal or what we're looking
8
for?
to 12 is what we want at rest. At rest. So if we were just sitting here right now and we were to start a 60-second timer and record how many breath cycles, meaning an inhale and an exhale, we'd want to see in between 8 to 12. Beyond that, we are stepping into the realms of overbreathing. Everything is a scale. So 13 is going to look different to 20. It's going to have an immense difference on your nervous system. But what you typically find is the people that are reporting, I'm doing 18 to 20 breaths in a minute, they're anxious. They're easily activated. They're reactive. They're super, super overwhelmed and stressed. There's a direct correlation to the way that they're breathing. And what's happened over time is people are experiencing stress, different forms of stress, and the body doesn't know the difference between different types of stress. It just responds the same. It's just the same. And what happens over time is stress inherently activates our sympathetic system. We have stress hormones, which are stimulants, go into our bloodstream, and that increases our heart rate and our breathing rate. If we don't have awareness of our stress, if we don't have awareness of how to regulate, if we don't have awareness of how to control our breath, eventually over time, the breathing rate at rest just sets higher and higher. And all of a sudden, our new baseline is 20 breaths a minute, but we don't know it. It's totally under the surface. So beyond that 12 times a minute, there's definitely some work to be doing. I had a paramedic once on one of my posts say to me, like, he commented, and then just before I had the opportunity to have a healthy debate with him, he deleted his comment. He was like, 12 times a minute, no, that's bullshit. It was something like 16 to 20. And what I wanted to say to him was like, I respect your viewpoint, and I also respect that you've learnt a university model and stuff like that. But in order for us to gather data and make conclusions, we've had to have subjects in these research, papers and tests. And, have you considered that, these tests may be done on a society of people who are overstressed, breathing too fast. And that's where we've got the numbers from. So, when you're truly relaxed and when your breathing is in a really good place, there's no real need to excessively do it. You've got space between each breath. There's a saying that one of my mentors said to me that, he said, life exists in the space between each breath. And what he meant by that was when someone has really good functional breathing, they'll take an inhale, they'll take an exhale, and there'll be up to a 4-second pause before they take their next inhale. Why? Because CO2 tolerance is good, breathing mechanics is good, breaths per minute is good. And so ultimately the air that they're bringing in is getting to where it needs to go, and therefore the body doesn't scream for it. But if it's not, of course the body's going to go, breathe again, breathe again, breathe again. And this is what happens. This is how people overbreathe. There's no space, there's no pause. They're breathing too fast. And it's about 30% of the population at the moment, overbreathing. And it's quite a large number of people when you think about 8 billion in the world. And so really, we need to be re-educating people on what breathing well actually looks like. It's not taking big breaths. It's not taking, fast breaths. It's, not trying to take in as much air as you can. It's actually the opposite for a lot of people. And, one of the things that we see is that you take an overbreathing society of a large percentage, then they come into the world of breath work and they might go to one of these transformational sessions. So they do fast breathing, right? Which is essentially just conscious hyperventilation. Or maybe they log online, they go to YouTube and they find Wim Hof and they do circular breathing, which is fast breathing. And these fast breathing techniques have their place. But if you've got someone who is habitually, not even realizing it, over breathing, then you're doing fast breathing workshops and fast breathing YouTube videos, you're further solidifying the pattern of breathing too much. So it's about teaching people how to breathe less, soft, light, breath holding, and everything in between, because that is what's going to make the difference in your performance, your sleep, your health, the state of your nervous system, the way your mind operates, your energy levels. That is the thing that is going to make the biggest difference in your day-to-day life, which is what most people want. You know, a workshop once a month is probably like 2% of your day, your life, your whatever. What are you doing for the other 98% that's really putting runs on the board and helping you in those areas of your life? And often it's, you know, teaching people to breathe less.
It's funny as you're sort of talking through that. I'm just sitting here, so
Yeah.
breathing, making sure every breath's through my nose.
Yeah.
I did one before, and I'm like counting to 4. I'm like, oh shit. I was like, I got to 4, and I'm like, I need to breathe again. So
Yeah.
it is probably something I need to work on. We sort of covered a lot there, but is there anything else that you think is important just for general health and well-being that people can do to regulate the breath, to help their mindset, to help their body just function?
Yeah, I would say just bring more attention to it throughout the day. You know, I get the question a lot, like, what can people do right now? I'm like, well, before I even tell you breathwork techniques or this or that, just bring your awareness to it. You know, because for most people, they're not in tune with it at all. It's not uncommon to start working with people and go, hey, like, when's the last time you actually like consciously took a breath? And they're like, I don't know. It's been a long time, if ever. And we forget because it's just happening. So, you know, it's actually about bringing awareness to it. It's like, okay, where can I repetitively throughout the day just tune into my breath? How is it happening? Is it high? Is it low? Is it fast? Is it shallow? Is it through my nose, my mouth? What's going on with my breathing? Because that will be influencing everything else that's going on in your body. It all starts with your breathing. So bring awareness to it. And then on top of that, the next suggestion I would make is spend periods of time practicing breathing light. You know, as simple as putting a finger under the nose and imagining there's a feather there. And if there was a feather there, you'd breathe so light that you wouldn't even disturb the feather. It's a simple exercise. You just sit there, and when you're doing this, you'll know you're doing it right because after a period of time, your mouth will get an increase of saliva, which means that your parasympathetic rest and digest system's coming online. But there's also this mild urge to breathe more. It's weird. It's like this seesaw between relaxation and activation. And that's exactly where you want it. If you've got the air hunger mild enough that you can maintain it and lose it, you're in the perfect spot, because what's happening is CO2 is rising in your blood. It's telling your brain, hey, time to breathe. That's what CO2 does. But you're like, no, this is manageable. And you're teaching and reprogramming your brain to breathe light. And you can do that for just 2 to 3 minutes. 2 to 3 minutes. If it gets too strenuous, take a break. Come back, 30 seconds, keep doing it. But periods of breathing light throughout the day will completely change the way you feel and the way you breathe. You'll notice you start to breathe lower, like into your diaphragm. You don't have to focus on pushing your belly out and breathing deep into your body. The first thing that people need to work on is their biochemistry. They need to work on breathing light, and then everything follows from that. If you learn to breathe light, inherently what will happen is your breathing rate will drop per minute. So that'll get lower, and your breathing mechanics will move down from the chest to the belly. So it's really about paying attention to this. You know, the secret to improving your breathing is like living within your CO2 tolerance. That's where it is. CO2 work is important. Yeah.
So as we start to drop our breath and we're doing those activities, what are some of like the key benefits that we're going to see from that?
Yeah. The first one is, you know, a relaxed and grounded nervous system. You're going to think clearer. You're going to be more in tune with emotion and reason, right? So when things and stress hit you, you're not going to flip over into an anxious state or a shutdown state as quickly. Your window of tolerance to stress actually gets wider. You know, you become a more tolerant person. You're going to see increased blood flow to every area of the body. So when we're talking about, you know, that's important just for living, but especially in performance, we're going to get more oxygen to where it needs to go, into our cells, into our brain. We're going to have better sleep. We're going to notice less stress. We're going to notice that we are far less reactive. We're going to notice that in exercise we can go for longer, or that we recover quicker. You know, the list really does go on. There will be a distinct change in how you feel psychologically and physiologically. And the thing is that you can feel it within a matter of minutes. It's so quick and it's so effective and it's so tangible. And it's also so simple. And I think that's why most people sort of ask themselves, like, what's the catch? Like,
Yeah.
What do you mean? I just breathe like light for 2 minutes. Yeah, that's it. They're like, and what else? I'm like, nothing. Just do that. You know, it's very, very simple. I was actually interviewing Lloyd, now that you mentioned him, the other day, and he was talking about investing, and he's like, it's simple. You just keep doing this. And people are like, what's the catch? He's like, just do this. Through thick and thin, make it a habit and do this and let it compound over time. So it's really just making it a habit. And once it's a habit and you're not even thinking about it, then, you know, it's going to continue to serve you because now you're doing it without even thinking about it. And before you know it, you know, you're feeling more grounded, you're feeling healthy, you're sleeping better, you know, you feel more connected to life. You're not overwhelmed by stress. You're more present. You know, these are the things that people really want. They want presence. They want to just feel in their body. They want to feel calm. They want to feel secure and whole and safe. And that really does depend on where your nervous system is at. So breath is the tool to influence that.
Do you get any other misconceptions about breath work? What are some of the big ones you get?
Yeah, definitely like the woo-woo stuff.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest ones. Somewhere along the line, someone decided that breathing is woo-woo when it's really not. And, you know, one of my favorite things to do now is actually like prove within 3 minutes how these woo-woo transformational breathwork sessions work, like how it actually works, how the nervous system discharges tension, how the brain works during it. And seeing the response from people when they're like, oh, this is actually legit. Like this stuff is legit. It's not some left field hippie weird shit. It's not a trend. You know, it's not just this thing that's hot. Like breathing is essential to life. And, you know, teaching people how to do it, you know, whether they want to become a facilitator or not, you know, it's a skill set that you're going to take with you and apply to every area of your life. So that's probably the biggest misconception. To be honest, we don't really face too much more in our space. I think we do pretty well in our content of just like weeding it out. I think if anything, you know, people just have these preconceived ideas that it's going to be this really complex task or thing that they have to integrate into their life, or it's going to be super time consuming, or they have to sit down and do it for an hour or meditate for an hour. Couldn't be further from the truth. You can do it in the moment, on the go, in the car, cooking dinner, anywhere. Yeah.
Is there anything that you would like to share that you think is important that haven't sort of asked the right questions for you to share with the audience?
No, I think that's really, we covered a lot of cool stuff there. I think, you know, the point that I really try to get across to people is, you know, your nervous system holds the key to your reality. So if you don't like the reality that you're seeing and you're trying everything external to fucking change it, it might be time to just come internal and work on, you know, doing that from the inside out. And the reason why I love it so much is because so much of the change that, you know, can be created and often people need is not done through thinking more. We're thinking too much. We need to change the way our body is positioning itself in terms of the nervous system, and that changes the way that we think. And so, you know, for those of you out there that struggle with a lot of anxiety or down moments, or you don't feel yourself and you notice maybe your moods are really unstable, and, you know, it's about really learning to understand how your nervous system works. You don't have to understand the full complexities of it. You just need to understand even the theory of the window of tolerance, you know, the red zone, the green zone, the blue zone. Learning to map your nervous system moment to moment. Where am I now? Okay, cool. What do I need? What tool? And as a result, you just make space within your mind to actually think properly. Because thinking and thoughts are two different things. Thoughts are just automatic. They just pop in. Thinking is one of the greatest gifts we have as humans. But we can't think well when we're too stressed. We can't think well. We can't learn, we can't grow, we can't adapt, we can't change anything if our brain and our nervous system is stuck in a survival response. Because in that moment, it doesn't give a fuck that you want to change this thought or this belief or set the goal to get the car or make $1 million. It doesn't care. You're an animal. Like, as much as you're a human, you still have animal parts of you, right? So when those animal parts are online, good luck trying to learn and grow as a person. You need safety first. It's the same for any living thing, creature. Kids, you know, you're never going to get through to them while they're having a tantrum. They're in survival responses. Regulate them first. Their brain pops open like a flower. Now they're ready to learn. Now they're ready to hear. Now they're ready to interpret. Dogs, they're mammals as well. How do we get the best out of them? Create safety, positive reinforcement. And so we need to treat ourselves the same. If we can focus on addressing ourselves from the nervous system first and then the mind, it's going to change so much for you. Even in your personal life, right? You can start looking at other people and stop judging them based on their responses, which is so easy to do, and start going, whoa, like they're really off. Okay. And once you know this, they're in that part of the nervous system, that makes sense. And you can just, have a bit more space and compassion and empathy for people and start to see them as, a being that has multiple states of being and they have different challenges in each of those. So it's transformational for relationships too, which is one of the most important things that we have in our life. So, if we can use this tool to better navigate conflict with our partners or, with our children and things like that, the more people have this awareness, I see a much healthier, happy, more grounded society that's functional. We just need to be able to cut through the noise and the stigma and all the shit in between it.
You're doing a good job so far. Keep going.
Thanks, bro.
Before you leave, what is your superpower? What is one of your key strengths that you think you bring?
Yeah, I learn really fast.
Okay, that's good.
I learn really fast, and I think I've really realized that this year. It was always just something that I did, and it wasn't until my partner actually, Shani, she was like, you are like photographic with shit. Like, it's like someone will say it once and you know it. And it's like, so because it was always just a thing for me, I never really thought about it. I learn really fast, and it's kind of a bit counterintuitive in some ways because I'm ADHD and like typically that should make learning. But the flip side to that is like when I'm interested in something, I learn it very quickly. And so it's been a real skill set of mine to learn something, embody it. But then what I also think I do really well is I can translate things that are really complex and just dumb them down or bring them down into a way that's easy for people to make sense of, easy for them to apply and get the message. And I think that sort of feeds into what I said at the start, like my greatest joy is teaching. And so, teaching is not about making something more complex for someone. It's about helping them understand it and implement it and embody it as easily and effective as they can in their own way. So, yeah, the more I've sort of sat with that question, I've been asked it before, I learn super quick, and I'm just grateful for my brain and my ability to do that.
This is pretty helpful, the old brain.
Yeah.
Where can anyone find you?
Yeah, Instagram's probably the best place to hang out. We also have a podcast as well. So on Instagram, at Chris Payten _ I'll give you my thing. You can chuck it in the show notes. And then on YouTube or Spotify, our podcast is called Beyond Your Breath. That's an awesome place to hang out. We video and record our episodes audio as well. And so it's a place for us to speak into the topics of breathwork, nervous system regulation and stuff, but beyond it. That's why we call it Beyond Your Breath. It's a platform for Shani and I to just talk life and whatever's coming up, but also interview really cool guests in their space too. So they're probably the best places. I can link the pod to you as well. And even if you wanted to, we have a free resource that we love to give out, and it's basically like a quick course that you can test your breathing from 3 different angles. It's got some breath flows in there, so we can give that to you for free, and your audience can have it for free too.
Appreciate it. Thank you for coming on.
No worries, man. Thanks for having me.
Have a good day.